Hey, everybody. Hello, world out there. Welcome to another LinkedIn Learning session hosted by Stories Inc. We are experts in employee storytelling, and we are so glad you all are here. My name is Bernadette Van Giesen, and I am your host. If you're new to our channel, we like to host these quick learning sessions every other Thursday here on LinkedIn to talk about anything and everything employer brand, recruitment marketing, employee storytelling, all of that good stuff. So thank you for being here. We have a really great topic today. We are talking about storytelling for associations. So kind of leaving the employer brand world a little bit and going over to associations and communications and marketing and talking about how to activate member voices using storytelling. So joining us to share their insights on this topic are two wonderful guests, Autumn Niggles and Laura Bicicchi from the American College of Cardiology. So Stories Inc., full disclosure, has worked with ACC for a long time. We love working with you guys, and we are so excited that you are here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. We are so happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. So before we jump into our topic, would you two want to just kind of quickly introduce yourselves? How long have you been with ACC? What's your role? Just would love to introduce you to the audience.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Autumn and I started at the organization around the same time, eons ago. I think we've both been there about 14 years. But I am one of the senior directors in the marketing and communications division, focus a lot on our member communications and outreach specifically.
Yeah. And yeah, Laura and I started, I think we were in the same orientation. So it has been about 14 years now. And yeah, so we worked together a long time, and I worked with Stories Inc. for almost 10 years. I feel like it's been like eight-ish years. And so I'm Autumn Niggles. I lead the corporate communications and social media team at the college. We have a team of 4.5 folks, and they're incredible. And so we do everything from internal communications, leadership communications, to social media. So everything you see on social is my team.
Awesome. So before we get into our topic today, so we're going to be talking a lot about, storytelling within that marketing and communication strategy. But I think it might be helpful to kind of talk about, who is ACC, and then what is this world of associations and what makes it a little bit more unique compared to folks that might be working in private companies.
Yeah. No. So when you're thinking about the ACC, you can think of us as a professional home for cardiovascular professionals. So Laura can get into in a little bit about who specifically our membership is, but there are 56,000 of them, and they're around the entire globe. And we also have about a little more than 500 staff who are also mostly in the United States, but some international. And they support everything from quality advocacy, health policy, registries, communications, marketing, IT. We have a huge organization of staff that support our 56,000 members. And Laura can talk a little bit about who those members are.
Yeah. So essentially, our members are individuals that all share a common interest. In our case, it's cardiology. And they self-select into this organization to really find that connection, that belonging, that professional support, and to access resources and a champion for their interests that they may not have otherwise had. And they're really important because, our organization exists not just to support them, but because of them. They're really the engine of our organization. And so, thinking about that, one of our, KPIs is our members' satisfaction and making sure that we are really supporting the work they're doing and helping to not only advance but also protect their interests. So in the association world, is it about the economics? Of course, like any organization it is, but it's less about that than it is about that facilitating that belonging and that support and elevating their point of view.
But I think it's like a really interesting hybrid of kind of like a customer approach and an employee approach, because they do keep the college running. Like there would be no ACC without its members. So there's that kind of satisfaction piece, but then also you're doing so much work of almost like how you would nurture employees. Like you're looking to nurture their career growth and give them resources and working towards things like inclusion and belonging and like a lot of those same themes. So it's really kind of like a nice crossover between the two.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we'll definitely get into that when it comes to like diversity, equity, inclusion, absolutely, and leadership as well. So.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so good overview of the college there. So kind of looking specifically at communications and marketing, and then we'll get into that storytelling piece.
Yeah.
So where do you guys want to start? Is it helpful to do kind of like a 30-second overview of what comms looks like at ACC? Does that sound good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to. So, communications and marketing is one pretty massive division at the college. We're maybe over 40 people now, something around that, and we basically exist to amplify the voices and the messages of our members, but also just our mission, which is to transform cardiovascular care and improve heart health for all around the globe. So, we develop compelling and thoughtful and impactful communications, which also are, can be marketing messaging in many, many different aspects. So that's social media, web, email, marketing and communications, in-person live events, signage, creative and branding. And we have a stellar creative and branding team that does just the most beautiful visuals, printed materials, anything like that. So and all of this is in-house. So we do sometimes, work with organizations like Stories Inc. to amplify our messaging, but we have a pretty stellar in-house communications and marketing and creative and branding team and media relations as well in-house. So I'm not sure if that gets as deep as you want about it, or Laura, if there's anything else about our division you want to talk about.
No, I think that covered it. I mean, one of the things to touch on too is and the reason why we use stories for really getting our messages across is because our audience is really, really broad. So we're tasked with creating messaging that will resonate with an incredibly diverse audience that respond to content completely differently, who all have maybe different needs or come from different backgrounds or come from, different perspectives, right? So it's finding a way to connect and build that, build those messages into everything that we do.
Yeah, and I want to build on that really quick. So I don't know that we actually explicitly said it, but our member types are really diverse. So we have physicians. So you think of, we're a cardiology association. You think of a cardiologist, right? You think of a surgeon, cardiac surgeon. You think of nurse. They're at pharmacist, and then it goes even beyond that. And we also have institutions that we credit through our accreditation program. So that's a totally different audience that we work with, and many, many more. So if you're thinking about who's our audience, each of those groups needs to be communicated with, and we need to listen to them in a very different way. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of people out there can probably relate to that, who are speaking to just like a lot of different, whether it's candidate audiences, customer audiences, but and then you're going to have your targeted segmented stuff, and then you also need things that can kind of speak universally and bring people together too, which I think is a lot of what the storytelling efforts that we've done together do. Yeah, I love that kind of overview that ACC is really working across the whole spectrum of communications and content, and billboards and branding and creative and email, but then also the storytelling piece. So we would love to dive into that a little bit more today. So I know Stories Think we started working with ACC through our more typical route, quote unquote, that we were uncovering employee stories for a talent attraction angle and communicating culture. But then I think quickly the communications team realized that storytelling could be used in the comms and marketing as well. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit and why storytelling is so important to your strategy?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that, Laura, first about kind of the genesis of the partnership.
Yeah.
So years ago, maybe 8 years ago, if I remember correctly,
Right.
our HR team, who's now people operations, came to communications and said, we want some sort of compelling, beautiful, exciting video that we can use for recruiting purposes, and also kind of, to show at a staff meeting to build morale and get, just a beautiful piece about the college and our staff and who we are. And so at the time I was doing quite a bit of internal communications. So Stories Inc. I think had reached out to ACC as, to try to get them as a client. And so as part of looking for vendors, we were really compelled by the storytelling aspect of working with stories. And so we quickly started working on a video together on employee branding, or for employee recruiting purposes. And it's still to this day one of my very favorite videos. And in it, there's a story of one of our staff people who was getting married at the time. And he was thrown this incredible wedding shower by staff. And they show, in it, we interspersed clips or photos from the shower, and you hear his voice talking about how, staff came together, and it was just off the wall and amazing and incredible. And I hear his voice when I think of that video, and just think about how we were able to tell the story of ACC and all the things we do and our mission and everything, but then also show that human element of how our staff can come together in really special ways for important moments in each other's lives. And if you look at our staff, our retention's pretty darn good. We've had people here for a long time, and things like that, to me, are a testament to that. So that video we still use. We should probably refresh it, Bernadette, but we should refresh that one. But it is so good, and that video is the one that spurred, Laura could use it for some of her programs. I could use it in, my world that isn't just internal comms. So Laura, if you want to talk about storytelling and why we then moved forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, obviously the common theme here is connection, right? So with employees and that employer relationship, you want to build that highlight those connections and that exist from an employee standpoint. But our organization is about connecting, cardiovascular professionals from around the world, in a shared mission. And we recognize that sharing content using those members' voices, their personal experience, that would help us to create deeper emotional connections with our members, result in this lasting impression of anything that we're trying to get across, right? The power of those personal stories, we felt, really would help us break through by helping individuals find common ground at a human level. And it would also help us not just to highlight those who were typically at part of our leadership structure who were getting the spotlight anyway. It would help us highlight the voices that were not seen all the time. So, those individuals who were really being impacted by the work that we were doing, but we're kind of hiding in the shadow, had historically been hiding in the shadows, right? And that really helps us showcase the impact of our mission. So, and Autumn can talk about this a little bit too, but we looked for the people who we didn't normally talk to. So people who had, come up to us in an event and said, talked about their experience with us, people who had, really been vocal in our, evaluations for like a program or something that we had put on. Those individuals and making sure that we were elevating their perspective helped us to be more impactful because we were showing, not telling what we were doing.
I think you also include in there a couple really good tips for identifying storytellers for anyone out there. So it's like, sure, like there always are going to be the leadership voices and the people who you hear a lot, and they should definitely be featured because they have a really important role in your organization. But then, looking for who's downloading every single resource that you know what I mean? Like who is like really engaged, even if you're not hearing their voice, who is coming up to you after events, who is taking every survey, things like that there are different ways to identify those quieter voices who are really engaged in the work that you're doing. So I think there's some really good tips there.
And I think just coming from the social media world, you often see people who are super active on social. They actually have incredible followings, but maybe they haven't risen, to the top in leadership yet. Maybe they're a lot younger and they're just starting. Maybe they aren't even in cardiology yet, which is an interesting one. Maybe they're in internal medicine and they haven't selected cardiology, but they are, part of one of our programs that is trying to like hone and trying to get them interested in cardiology. So on social, we can do a lot of lurking to see who's really, really a strong voice. And we have done that before and we've used them, and some of them are like the most rising stars. I mean, I hope they watch this because they are rising. They're amazing and they know who they are. And they are so active now, and people recognize them, and they'll recognize them from these videos, which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really great high level explanation of why storytelling is so important. So I would love to kind of dive into maybe some of the specific projects that your team has been able to do, and or like the initiatives that are so important to the college. So like leadership, belonging, things like that. So I don't know if there's one in particular you guys want to start with, or what comes to mind there.
Go ahead.
Or it could,
so many.
or if it's helpful to talk through, like starting with a project plan, like
Yeah,
identifying
I
places
think that might
where to
be a
start.
good
Okay.
maybe project plan, because and Laura can I don't know, Laura, if you wanna start, but it's
Sure.
so important to lay that foundation. So go for it.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I mean, the foundation is going to determine how successful your story is, right? So, and starting from the very beginning. So, I think um, videos can be a little shiny, and everybody wants to do a video. So, coming from the marketing and communication side, we'll get a request a lot. Hey, I want to do a video for this, and sure, you could spit out a video if you want to, but having a clear idea of your goals when you're developing that project plan, like who you're talking to, not just who you're talking to, but like what you want them to feel after watching the video. What is your purpose? Do you
Mhm.
want them to leave feeling inspired? Do you want them to be informed? Do you want them to just come out feeling moved? That's going to help you understand not just like who you need to engage, but how you need to engage them. So having that initial plan in place is so important, in that idea of your purpose and your intention when you begin. And then when you're getting into the planning phase, making sure that you understand that story arc. So one of the things I think Autumn and I typically do, we always put together a brief when
Yes.
we're working on a project. So important to organize your thoughts. And I like to think of it in 3 phases, right? So like phase 1 is you're setting the stage and determining your thesis statement. So setting that intention from the get-go.
Can you give an
And
example of maybe like a thesis statement that you're proud of?
yeah, Autumn has a really good one. So I'm going to
Oh,
kick it
do
off.
I?
Yeah. Well, or ways to do it, right? So like, okay, for us, so we had we just recently did a video for our health equity summit that we
Oh,
held,
yeah.
and it was focused on equity in cardiovascular medicine, right, and creating a more equitable future. And we started the video off with a physician telling a personal story about an interaction with a patient that he had, and who wasn't taking their medication. They weren't participating actively in their care, and it was because they felt marginalized. They didn't feel like they didn't have access. There were all of these things that were coming together to prevent this person from having ownership over their future and their success and uh, becoming the healthiest individual they could be. And the doctor really sat down, leveled with him, connected with him on a personal level, and it really highlighted the importance of having representation and support, not just as having representation in the provider space, but also but in the patient space as well. So, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the video, and set the created this space where we were highlighting the importance of what we were about to talk about.
I think Laura, that was fantastic, and I think I know which one you might be thinking of. Are you thinking of the COVID video?
No, that's so
No?
it was for you.
For me,
Yeah,
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 for
for you.
me to talk
Yeah,
about a
yeah. So
thesis.
you can
So
do it like so you can create like you can
yeah,
set the stage and your intention in a really like in a more serious way, right?
yeah,
But you can also set the intention
yeah,
by using humor or
yeah,
levity. And Autumn has a really good
exactly.
example of that, the COVID video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we've done a couple. COVID lasted a while, so we have a couple of COVID videos. One was not humorous, and I'll get to that one later. It was amazing, but not humorous. One was one we did in, I think it was 2022. So we were starting to emerge from the strenuousness of 2020 and 2021, and we had one of our big annual meetings coming up. And we wanted to do an opening video for the opening session, thousands of people in a room. And we wanted to use stories to talk about how people have emerged from COVID times, and not really talk about COVID a lot, but talk about what's next and how our members have started connecting back with their patients and things like that. So we used humor a little bit, not even knowing that humor would come. But one of our members told a really cute story about her 90-some-year-old patient who asked her to go skydiving with him when he turned 90. I believe that's it. He turned 90, I think it was. And she told this, this precious story right at the top of the video. So the opening session starts and then boom, she's telling a story about a 90-year-old skydiving, and which is, you know, seems kind of random for a cardiology conference, but it was precious. And we interspersed, you know, some photos of her and her patient with all the gear and everything. And it was just kind of funny. She was like telling the story and how she was like shocked that she would go skydiving with him, and she did. Anyway, it's just one of those things that you can do as part of building. You don't even know necessarily when they start telling stories that things like that will come, but Stories Inc. does a great job of bringing those types of stories out of individuals. And humor is a great way to kick off a video. It's one of my favorite ways, even if it almost doesn't, even if it seems like a non sequitur and it's not really going to follow with the rest of the video. It's a great little attention grabber at the beginning.
For sure. So I think, Laura, I thank you guys. Those are really great examples. Laura, I think I interrupted you when you were talking about your story arc. So
no,
sorry about that.
That's fine. That took us to a really good place. We had good examples here. But yeah,
yes,
you set the stage and your intention, right? Number one. Number two, you build your case, right? So discover those supporting stories. So what is it? What are those stories that are going to really support that thesis statement, just like you would any like a paper, right? And I think we have some good examples of that and ways to do that. And then, you know, bring it home, right? Like drive home that point on a high note. So what's going to really, really, really push people to feel at the end is that you save the incredibly impactful, you know, piece for the very end. Or, you know, you could end on humor again. But we had one, and again, using this health equity video as an example, just continuing the thread through. At the end of that video, we had one of our members was talking about how we all have to come together to develop solutions, and we all need to be on board. And then we use this as an opportunity to end the video with the individuals that were our talent taking a pledge for health equity. And then in the room on site, when we played it, we had everyone rise at the same time and take the pledge together. So it created this moment of engagement with, you know, a two-dimensional medium. So we were able to like create that two-way connection with the video and end it on this dramatic note, with everybody kind of coming together around
I love that. That like gave me
a
little bit, because it's like you said at the very beginning, you set out how do you want people to feel, and like what do you want the action to come out of every piece of content you create. I think that's a really good exercise to do. So in this case, it was, yes, we want to talk about health equity, but we want people to take action about it, and we want people to feel like this is a really important thing. And so to connect it at the end with this kind of full circle experience of, you know, here's how we're going to take action is just like a really great use of pairing media with also other parts of your marketing communication strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things to think about is like, you know, a video, it, you know, can be a one-way communication, but you could also create it in a way that it can be two-way, you know, where you're inspiring people to get to communicate back with you, to take an action, to feel something and be moved to do something, you know. So I think keeping that in mind too, when you're creating a video, it doesn't just have to be you pushing it out with your association. You can, you know, use it as an encouragement mechanism for engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Something else I want to touch on really quick, when you go, you know, you laid out 3 different phases of building a project plan or building the video. When you were talking about building the case, something that has come up repeatedly in working on these videos is oftentimes a group within our organization comes to communications and says, I want a video about a strategic plan, for instance. You know, we're launching a new strategic plan. We need a video. We got to tell people about our plan and the initiatives within our plan and blah, blah, blah. And we've often said, that's cool, but nobody's going to watch the video if it's just like, boop, 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 the plan, bullets, blah, blah, blah. Let's tell it in stories. So I believe a strategic plan or 2 ago, we're on, I don't know, I've worked on a couple of them now, but we did a strategic plan video and we had members tell stories about the development, the genesis of the plan, why we're, you know, different initiatives within the plan. And we also And so we used stories, but then we also were able to intersperse some corporate visuals, which kind of gave that business line of the organization, a good feeling like, okay, we are informing as well as telling the stories. So they're nice. There are ways to do those to kind of fill the need and the desire of a group that wants something that's very just informative and very, bulleted, and here's X, Y, and Z part of a plan or initiative. There's a way to do both things. Both things can exist in the same world and actually can really complement each other. So if you're thinking about creating a video and someone wants something that's very black and white with corporate visuals or things like that, you can incorporate stories. You just got to think about it, maybe flip it around and think about it a little differently than your typical corporate video.
That's really good advice. So go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's a really good point. And I think that kind of gets to, so another way to use video, I think that would be important to highlight, is you can use it to actually support your business development work and create business cases for funding critical programs, as opposed to somebody just sitting there and running through a PowerPoint presentation, which is the typical way it's done, right? We've actually in the past used video and personal stories to really create a business case for funding programs, and push those out to industry and potential sponsors at events. So we did one, and using those visuals, right, incorporated and overlaid over those personal stories, helped create that case. So, we would have somebody that was talking about, the dearth of representation in cardiovascular research, right? And we were able to put up on the screen, charts and graphs that kind of supported that, right? So we used stories of those impacted by the programs themselves that existed, and then stories that helped demonstrate that unmet need in the wider healthcare landscape to really make that case. And those stories in turn helped us to drive sustained and recurring investment from funders and sponsors so that we could continue those programs and advance our mission forward. So I think it's important to think about the fact that you can actually look outside the traditional use cases for video, and use it to support the growth of your business too.
I love that. And I feel like even in just a couple of minutes, I think we've talked about so many different use cases for stories. I mean, like going back originally to recruiting, and then we've talked about live events, we've talked about funding, we've talked about announcing strategic plans and aligning communications with really strategic business operations. So that's just like a lot of ways. And I think it's so impressive how ACC, because you're also doing original research, you're doing like other more traditional marketing communications and stuff, but really infuses storytelling throughout all of the work that you're doing is really amazing. So to close us out, can you share, I mean, I think we've shared a few throughout, but any success stories or, anything to kind of round the group out, round the session out?
Yeah, can I talk about the COVID video?
Go for it. That's a really good example.
Maybe a somber one. It's not really somber, but
no, it's not
extraordinarily somber. But so at the end of, I think it was for 21, we decided that it would be really important to show our members around the globe how they were all in the same, maybe different boat, same storm, throughout the year. And we had them submit photos. So we had dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of photos of masks and PPE and, all of the stuff from 2020. We had our physicians, our nurses send in photos of vaccines happening in their hospital and things like that. And then we selected maybe 5 folks from around the country to talk about their experience and some specific stories that happened during that, very challenging year of hope and of maybe a little happiness, and kind of to show everybody, and we played it at opening session to show everyone was in the same storm, but coming out together. And one of
here.
Say it again.
We're still here. Like we're
still here. And many of us are not still here. And that was a hard part of that year, with a lot of loss. So it was important to use stories. I'm getting chills. That was a rough year, guys. it was a rough year, but to show that, our members are just incredible. And by members, I mean the physicians, the nurses, the pharmacists, they were in it that year as we were all, sitting at home being as safe as we could be. But we used stories, and there was this one beautiful story of one of our members who had a congenital heart defect patient who had, I think, a transplant at the time. So, at the time we didn't know what was going, how were these patients going to be affected, especially, some of the youngest, most vulnerable children at the time. And he just told a beautiful story about how she's doing. I think she was doing well. And I don't even remember the story. I just remember the feeling I got, which is actually maybe more important. I just remember feeling like, oh, this is beautiful. And then we interspersed all of those photos that we had kind of crowdsourced into the video. And it was a success story because we played it. I think that meeting was virtual, if I'm remembering, Laura. It was 21.
It was.
Yeah. So once again, we were planning on doing it in person. Did not happen for safety purposes, which was a good call. But we played it virtually, put it all over social. And it was a really moving video. I got lots and lots of feedback from members and staff who messaged and said that they loved it. So, that's not getting to the number of how many clicks did it get, how much engagement. We could go down the road if anybody is curious, but just, word of mouth was beautiful with that specific video.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great kind of final story to end it with. Thank you both so much for being here. Any kind of like final thoughts or anything that you want to send people off with before we sign off?
Yeah, sure.
Laura?
Yeah, go for it. Okay, I'll go for it.
Yeah, you go.
Right. If you're looking to do a video, look, that thoughtful and informed preparation is so important. And, really understanding your purpose, your intention, your goal, what you want those viewers to come away with, that is going to go a long way to ensuring you have a successful and impactful video. And then like combining that with, a healthy sense of, possibility is really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. That would be my takeaway, would be to be open to where stories can lead you and do your darndest to not stick to a perfect script or a prescription of what you think might be needed for a specific goal or brief. So in writing that brief in the beginning, it's so important to have your goal in mind. Like Laura just said, that's number one. But then kind of like I always say, I always get a certain feeling when I'm in an airport, even if I know where I'm going. There's a new notebook. If any of you are notebook, like journal people, if you're in an airport or you have a fresh journal, it just feels like the possibilities are endless. And so once you've selected those, and same with feel like you could go anywhere, right? Possibilities. This plane could take me anywhere. Once you've done the work and you've selected the right people, you have the diversity you need, you have the voices you need, let groups like Stories do the work and uncover the stories, because that's where the stories about baby showers and skydiving will come from.
Embrace the unexpected.
Ooh, yes.
Ooh, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. Anyone out there, please connect with Autumn and Laura on LinkedIn. Please check out the ACC. They're really creating really amazing media and content. So please check them out on social. And if you like this kind of session, follow Stories Inc. We do them every other Thursday. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Okay.
Thanks,
Autumn. Thanks, Laura. This was fun.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.